Hi, Booktube. So, this is going to be my review of Mirror by Graham Masterton. So, usually I show my face in my reviews, but today the screen will consist only of the book that I read because I want you to get a nice long look at this magnificent cover. You see that? You see that? That's awesome. Now, obviously, this is a library book, my library that I run. This book was originally mine, but somehow the piles of my old books when we were moving house and when we were moving the library, books kind of got mixed up and stuff, so it ended up as a library book. But that's okay. At least I get to read the book. Anyway, so this is clearly a paperback from hell. And this is only my second, in my life, this is only my second non-Stephen King adult horror novel. Yes, I know, that's very, very specific. Non-Stephen King adult horror. I've watched a lot of horror movies, I've read Stephen King books, and I've read a lot of children's horror, but only two non-Stephen King adult horror. I get repetitive. Anyways, so that's what I want to show you. That's all I wanted to tell you about that. So let's get into what this book is about. So this book was published in 1988, and so there's this screenwriter in Los Angeles called Martin Williams, our protagonist, who is a super fan or has an obsession with a 1930s child star who was nicknamed Boofles. I forgot what his real name is, but Boofles. And he was termed the boy Shirley Temple. This 1930s child star was very famous and made several big hits back in the day. But his life ended tragically in 1939 when his adopted his adoptive grandmother hacked him into several pieces, murdered the child star and cut him up into multiple pieces. So Martin Williams, the screenwriter, wants to create a script telling the story of Boofles' life prior to the murder. But no Hollywood producers will go near such a project because it's poison because of how Boofles' life ended. By the way, this image you see here, this Lovecraftian creature that you see here, you don't see it until the absolute very end. Some elements of it are hinted at throughout the book, what is coming, but this only shows up at the climax of the book. Anyways, so he's obsessed with this 1930s child star. He's a super fan. He collects all the articles and all the old films of this child star. But one day, his friend Ramon, who is a second-hand or antiques dealer, says Boofles' estate has all his furniture being sold. Some woman who claims that she has the furniture to Boofles' home is selling it. And he says, why don't you go check it out? And he basically goes and finds this lady who's, he realizes that he cannot afford he cannot afford it, but he can. So the lady offers him the lowest possible price, but the lowest possible price is basically him emptying his bank account so he can buy a mirror that was in the room where Boofles was murdered. And And Martin Williams buys this mirror by check and empties his bank account and purchases the mirror and brings it to his apartment. And he has a landlord, and the landlord has a grandson, and those are also characters in addition to Ramon. And there's all these other cast of characters that play significant roles, but he brings the mirror home to his apartment, and strange things start to happen. Like, he sees things in the mirror that are not there in the real world. Things come out of the mirror. Things are sucked into the mirror. And the strange happenings around this mirror escalate over the course of the book. Now, and this leads the character to some kind of investigation, at least in the beginning, as to what happened on the night of 1939 when Booffles was murdered. Because this mirror was there when he died. And Martin goes on this investigation, goes on some kind of scavenger hunt, so to speak. And that was like kind of detective fiction, which I actually appreciated, but it abruptly halted after a short while, and then all the hints as to what really happened and the nature. This is important. The nature of who Booffles was is gradually revealed with escalating strange happenings and escalating gruesome killings. Now, at first it was just the mirror, which all the danger comes from, and all the scary happenings revolve around the mirror. But it turns out there's a demonic force behind the mirror that extends its powers not just into the immediate vicinity of the mirror, but further on. And of course, and the mirror itself, later, minor spoiler, is a portal to another world. The book has themes, and this is not a spoiler, but this is cryptically telling you how or what will be said. So think Alice Through the Looking Glass meets the Book of Revelation. Yeah, Alice in Wonderland meets the Book of Revelation. That's a general combination of themes. And I also saw a lot of I saw a lot of inspiration from other novels, other horror stories, including stuff by Stephen King. There's a cat that jumps into the mirror, but emerges as a snake with a cat's head, comes back as a snake with a cat's head, gets into the mirror, and then what comes out is that. So there's a lot of so I see a lot of inspirations from other horror stories. Anyways, I'm not going to get too far in. If you want a review with further detail, Paperback Mania made a much more a much more articulate review with a lot more details, with a lot more spoilers. I'm going to remain intentionally vague with my review. But what I will say is the scares were really good. There were some gruesome death scenes. They disturbed me, but only temporarily. So I only got the chills a little bit. So maybe it just shows that I'm mature enough to read this kind of stuff. it gave me the creeps a little bit. The death scenes and some scenes of self mutilation. Uh, mutilation that self mutilation involuntarily done because of the demonic force in question in behind the mirror. There were some pretty gruesome scenes, and at the end there was also a really gigantic scene of carnage. um, Although there were still some plot holes, there were still some questions that remained unanswered near the end that I wanted to know more behind one. There were still several unanswered questions at the end. So for that, the book loses some points. But it's a fast read. It's a smooth read. I read through it in only 11 days, which is pretty fast for a slow reader like myself. This book is 350. How many pages was it? Now you can read a little bit. 345 pages. So it's 345 pages. So for a book of 345 pages and me finishing it in 11 days, that's pretty quick. So it was a pretty easy read for me. I enjoyed it. So I'm going to give this book a 9 out of 10. So yeah, this is my second paperback from hell. I did mention earlier that I did read another non-Stephen King adult horror novel. It was The Master by Guy and Smith. You might see that book cover in Criminali's opening title sequence in his videos. I've read that book. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening and goodbye.